Hey everybody, I am here today with Amanda Bennett, and she is a podcast guesting strategist and founder of the Podcasting Moms Club, which is actually how we met. So I'm so excited to talk to you today, Amanda. Welcome.
Thank you so much, Melissa. I'm super excited to be here.
Yeah, awesome. I can't wait. I always love to just kind of, before we dive into all the goodness, I would love for you just to share a little bit about yourself. So, like your kids, like where you live, like what you're up to now.
Okay, so my kids, I have an 8-year-old daughter and an almost 4-year-old son. He'll be 4. Hold on. Can you hear those sirens in the background?
No, I can't.
Okay, so I wanted to pause because I was like, there's a fire engine that just went by. Uh, I'll start over. So I have an 8-year-old daughter and an almost 4-year-old son, and I live just outside of Nashville, Tennessee. We've been here right at 10 years now, and it's definitely home for us now.
Yeah. Where were you before you were in Nashville?
I grew up and lived before here in Athens, Georgia. So UGA, the University of Georgia. I went to school there. I have 2 degrees from UGA. I worked there, and we moved to Nashville for my husband's job right almost exactly 10 years ago.
Aw. And are you loving it in Tennessee? Like, do you love it there?
Yeah, I mean, it's very similar to where we were. I mean, I'm Southern, we're in the
Yeah.
South. There's like, we only moved up a state. So it's very similar, but it definitely feels like home now. Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. So I know that you kind of mentioned like you had degrees and things before, and I know you are all about podcasting now, but I know you didn't start there. So tell us like where did you start? Like what were you doing before you got into podcasting?
Okay. I'm not going to go
Yeah.
all
Yeah.
the way back, but we'll just start before I had kids. I actually worked for over a decade in nonprofit fundraising. So I'll give you the inside scoop. I have my undergrad is in sports business. There's
Ooh.
a whole story. I'm not going to go into that, but I worked for the Spurs for a while. I've worked for minor league baseball teams. Anywho, that's a whole different thing.
Yeah.
Then I have a degree. My master's is in nonprofit management, and so I worked helping nonprofits raise millions of dollars on small teams, and that's what I did right before I had my daughter, and that's kind of like where we intersect here in this story. I decided to, when I had my first child, my daughter, I was going to go back to work. We had to decide what would make sense financially. Do
Mhm.
I go to work and we pay for childcare, or do I stay home and forfeit my salary?
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, we did the math, and the math wasn't mathing very well for me to work continuing to raise money at a wonderful national nonprofit, but just it didn't make sense.
Yeah.
And so I came home and stayed with my daughter. And that, Melissa, this is the whole combo here, because I know you felt similar. That entering into motherhood was such an identity shift for me. I'm an
Mhm.
only child. I didn't have really much to compare or to like reality of having a
Yeah.
child. And you also don't know until you're in it. And there were a lot of things I just did not anticipate, a lot of mental health, physical health things that came up that I didn't even know were possibilities.
Yeah.
And so there was a whole soul searching, identity shift, like trying to find my footing again,
Yeah.
where I had established myself in a career, was very knowledgeable in an area. When I went into my work, I knew what I was doing. I could, there was results I knew I could get. And now I'm at home with this baby, and I felt like a total failure. I was like, what
Yeah.
am I even doing here? This, like, everything turned upside down.
Yeah.
So that's what kind of launched me into this world of podcasting that we're talking about now.
Yeah, which we have to talk about because like you have a podcast, but like you haven't done it in quite some time, right?
No, no, I did the podcast from 2019 to 2021, so 2 years.
Yeah.
And it was a solo and guest format podcast. And I did it, Melissa, again, I don't have a background in speaking or in tech or anything audio. I didn't know what I was doing. My husband has knowledge about audio and video things from his work, but I just jumped in knowing that it was something that I needed to talk about.
Yeah.
That like I tell this story all the time that the reason I'm in podcasting is because of nipple cream. And I will share that story with you because as moms, I know you'll get it here, but
Yeah.
as I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do, I came out of that fog of, early motherhood where it's just you're always taking care of what the baby needs. And you finally catch your breath and realize, I got to figure out what I'm doing here. Like,
Yeah.
I need something for me now. I need a way to use my brain, to use my creativity, to feel plugged into something. And
Yeah.
and that's fine if you love being a stay-at-home mom and that fills your cup. That's amazing. Do that. I just felt like there was a piece of me that I wasn't getting to use.
Hmm.
And so I started a podcast and I wanted to talk about all these things. The nipple cream story is when I was struggling so much with in early days with my daughter. She had a dairy protein allergy. She wasn't sleeping.
Oh,
I was struggling mentally with a lot of things that I would see moms and go, how in the world are they doing that? Like, how do you look so put together and your baby is sleeping and you're not just frazzled? I didn't
yeah.
get it. I was like, I'm obviously doing something wrong.
Yeah.
And then I talked to a mom and I told her all this, and she was like, that's just no, you're fine. Like we struggle with these things. And so when I
Yeah.
heard someone else say, I struggle with this too, it was so affirming.
Hmm.
And she was also like, oh, well, if you're having trouble breastfeeding, I have this really great nipple cream that you can use. And I will say it was amazing.
It
Like
changed your
that
life.
made such a difference. It was life-changing. But it was just the fact of sharing that
Hmm.
conversation with her shifted everything. And I was
Yeah.
like, More moms need to hear this."
Yeah, absolutely. So is that what you did? Like you talked about like mom journey, mom struggle, because like you hadn't created a business or anything yet, right? Like you're like, I
No.
just want to start a podcast. I want to talk about
Yes. Yes. Yeah, that's all I knew. I was like, I want to talk about the physical challenges, the health challenge, mentally, physically, but the ups and downs of
Yeah.
just the reality of the real reality of being a mom with young kids, like little kids. Maybe it's you're a first time mom, whatever that looks like. The reality, just having those conversations, one, because I wanted other moms to know about it. But after I started doing it, I realized how that was benefiting me so much by
Mhm.
learning all these things about postpartum depression, about like physically ways I can, I mean, my ab separation, like I wasn't imagining that. It was, there was things that
Wow.
I
Yeah.
just didn't realize before I
Yeah.
was having these conversations with other experts and moms. And it was just, that was kind of, that opened the door, obviously. I had listened to podcasts before I started a podcast because I love the ability as moms to just pop it in my ear and I can do whatever I'm doing while I'm
Mhm.
listening. I can learn while I'm doing something else.
Yeah.
And it just, all of that opened up this whole other world of podcasting for me.
Yeah, which I think is just so important. And like you said, like you go through such an identity shift, like when you do become a mom, especially if you like are leaving your career
Yeah.
to then, be able to stay at home. And then it's like, yeah, how do I fit into like this equation? Like, where am I in this whole situation of being a mom and caring for myself? And what do I have for myself? And who am I? And all of those different things, which I think so many moms do go through at multiple times in their life. Even if they are working outside of the home and they don't stay at home, it still is like, how does it all fit in? And how do I not feel like a failure every single day in all the different avenues that I'm in?
Right. Oh
Like,
yeah, there's still
it's
those days.
yeah, absolutely. So you have this podcast, like you're doing this podcast, and then you have your kids at home. Like, how old are they at this point?
So at that point, I just had my daughter.
Yeah.
And I think let's just rewind back to what was happening in the spring of 2020.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
Not that we
I,
want to.
right. But this, just for context here,
Yeah.
I had my son April of 2020.
Wow.
And I was doing my podcast and I had a new baby. And there just came to this point where I go, I really need to press pause on this. I need some space. I had been doing podcasting. I loved it, but I wasn't really set on a way for it to make money the way I wanted it to make money
Yeah.
and care for a newborn and deal with all these things happening in the world. So I did what I needed to do for myself. And I said, you know what? I'm going to wrap this up for now. Not never, but for right now, this needs to this needs to be done.
Mm-hmm.
And what I found after doing that was, one, I got so much amazing feedback from people saying, you're doing, like, this is so what it's about.
Yeah.
Like, you're taking the break you need. And that's so inspiring. And so that was great to hear all that too, because it was hard. It was hard to let that go. I had invested so much into it and really enjoyed what I was doing, but you have to know when to say when sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
And as I did that and gave myself some space, and we all kind of processed what happens over the next several
Yeah.
months.
Yeah.
But then I also was still connected to a lot of these moms that I had met through podcasting, and really just on a friendship level. And one of them reached out to me and said, hey, would you be open to helping me with this, like helping me get some guests on my podcast? And I was like, sure. Somebody else said, hey, I know you've had a podcast. Do you know how to grow a podcast? And I was like, well, I know one way that I've grown a podcast and I can help you with that. And one of those ways was guesting, being on
Yeah.
on other people's podcasts. And so I started helping another mom with that. And then it sort of developed into this whole other thing that I could do where I wasn't necessarily in front of the mic, but I could help other mom podcasters to be able to be in front of the mic.
Mhm. Yeah. And I love like so many great nuggets that you share there just about like pressing the pause button. So like are you saying that when you were in college and you were getting these degrees, you had no idea like this wasn't part of your plan,
Right, right.
right?
Yeah.
I mean, because that's the beautiful thing about life. And if you're open to being like, okay, this doesn't feel right to me, to my situation, to where I am currently, like in my life with my family, whatever. And obviously, like you must be in a situation where that was okay. Like your
Yeah.
husband is working, you're able to
Yes.
do that. Like he's has income coming in where you can say, I'm going to press the pause button right now and I need to figure this out. And I want to be able to care for myself and my kids at the
Yes.
same time during this uneasy time of a pandemic.
Yes. I will say I'm very blessed and in a very um just a position that not everybody is in with
Yeah.
financially. We worked a lot to get to where we are financially. And I will also say I tried other things too. And podcasting is what really, I mean, I did real estate, not for me. I used my degree when I came home after I had my daughter, just kind of dabbling, trying to get back into things. I did grant writing for clients. And so I've done little things, and that just, again, it's like, what do you feel like is going to work for you in your season of life, in your season of motherhood? Like, it's okay to change your mind. It's okay to take a step back or step in a different direction. It's not really a
Yeah.
step back. So,
Yeah.
um, yeah, that really, and that was hard to do. I know, like s- it's a form of self-care. Setting boundaries, saying no to things can be really hard.
It's super hard to do those things. And also, if you don't have people around you that have been doing the things that you are doing, so like being at home with your babies, if everybody else worked, then a lot of the time you're looked at as like, are you crazy? Like you're leaving that steady income and that job. And it's a great thing that you're doing, obviously, but like you have a degree. Like, what are you doing? You're
Yeah.
not even going to use that. Like you paid for this education. So it can be a lot of that outside noise. And like you
Mhm.
shared, like just getting quiet and being like, yeah, but what feels good right now? Like what works for this situation? And you probably are using a lot of the skills that maybe you used in your other jobs for what you're currently doing. The title just isn't the same.
Exactly. Exactly. It was so funny because just the other day I was looking at some old things I was doing for clients with my grant writing, and how similar the process is to do podcast guesting, the research, the engagement. the writing of a pitch, the follow-up, like it's so similar.
Yeah.
And it's just funny because yeah, there's lots of these overlapping things that happen, and you use skills that you had that you don't realize you're using. And I think just the overarching thread really is that relationships have like I'm in the business of people. And
Hmm.
that's really been the common thread
Yeah.
from start to end, is that I I genuinely just love getting to know people and then getting to be able to help them, whatever that is. Like if you are wanting to be involved in a nonprofit, you want to help further their mission. Amazing. I'm going to help you do that.
Yeah.
You know, if you're the nonprofit, you want to help more people. Awesome. That's what I can help you do. But then when you shift it, it just looks a little bit different with podcasting.
Mhm.
So it's still growing an audience, still making money, still connecting with other people. So yeah, it's been a really cool experience to shift gears.
Yeah. So what would be like your advice if someone is looking to start a podcast or grow a podcast or monetize their podcast or find a podcast to be on? Like, do you have a couple tips that you could
Ooh.
share to the moms that are listening? And I know those are like 10 different questions. So like which one lights you up?
Yeah. Okay. Where do I start here? So let's start first. So you don't have to have a podcast to be on a podcast as a guest. I'll say
Mm,
that. So
perfect.
if you've got something that you are passionate about, something, a business or a cause that you're super passionate about, that you have, that you want to grow, either an audience or you want to make money doing it, you have a specific goal in mind for what you're helping people with, you can absolutely be a guest on a podcast. And the first step of that really is to just sit down and go, okay, who do I want to get in front of? Like who is my ideal person I want to go speak to, and think about what you're going to what message you're going to deliver. And
Hmm.
then once you have that nailed down, that's when you go look for the podcasts with those audiences, and the podcasts that your message will fit into what they're talking about and help in a different way. So that's like the baby first step there.
Yeah.
Um, Now,
But
in
I
terms
love
of,
that. I love that
yeah,
you said that. So thank you for saying that because like I think that can be like, wait a second, I can only go on podcasts if I have a podcast. Or that's like my
yeah,
mind maybe thinking that,
yeah,
but like because I have a podcast. So like that's my view, but I love that you share that. So like if you just wrote a book or if you have a course or you have
yeah,
something amazing that you a nonprofit that you like love and you want to talk about, like those are
mhm,
great ways to like reasons why you want to go on podcast to share that
mhm.
message to a broader audience.
Yeah, yeah. And the tech stuff is easy to figure out. Like, don't let that hold you back. If you're like, oh, I don't have an expensive microphone or I don't have a camera, like that's easy stuff to figure out. And you don't have to have the top of the line when you first start either. So
Yeah.
just know that. The second thing I want to address about starting a podcast that I wish I would have known, and I'm going to ask you what you think too, Melissa,
Ooh,
because
I can't wait.
yeah, because this is, you passed a year,
I'm
you
at
hit a
2 years.
milestone. 2 years.
2 years.
You hit a milestone.
Yeah.
So I'm going to ask you that in a second too, because I'm
Yeah.
curious. But I wish I would have known when I started. Now, I don't know if it would have changed much, because I'm the type of person that I over plan and I will hold myself back if I have too much. I just had to get going,
Yeah.
which was good for me. But I do wish I would have known how much time goes into producing a podcast
Yeah.
episode.
Yeah.
I wish I would have known. And it's not a bad thing. It's just you have to budget yourself and you have to
Mhm.
plan ahead to know. I mean, totally batch record, batch write, but it still takes time. And
Mhm.
so just knowing that ahead of time so that you can build it in your schedule. Also that I, having a specific goal for your podcast before you start. Like how is your podcast different than the podcast next door?
Mhm.
And not to say that that should stop you if you don't have some huge different thing, because sometimes it is just your perspective is different based on your background, your experiences, whatever. But something to think about in terms of like the ability for you to continue to grow your audience, because it's it's an ongoing challenge, you know. It's
Mhm.
not an easy platform to grow an audience. It's not so if somebody tells you, "Oh, I can help you hit 1 million downloads in 6 months," run
Yeah.
the other way. Okay?
Yeah,
Um
absolutely.
but it is such a great way to nurture an audience. And it's such a fantastic platform to get to know other amazing people in your industry and to create a name for yourself that people will go to you for things. Like, yes, Melissa is the go-to person for this thing. There are very few platforms that have that ability to the
Mhm.
degree that podcasting does.
Yeah, no, I love that. And I knew like when I started the podcast, like I literally just wanted to, I love to talk, first of all. So I love talking. I love sharing like ideas and things. And I also love highlighting other women because just like you said with starting your podcast, like I wanted to be able to talk about these things that are not in someone's highlight reel. You know what I
Yep.
mean? Where it's like you see all of these moms doing all these amazing things and dressed and amazing. And you're just like, oh my God, I'm failing. And so
Yeah.
I just wanted to be like, no, you're not. Like, we are all in the same boat. Like, you are not alone. And really sharing that story of like, you aren't alone. You can do this. Everything that you're going through is more than likely normal. Like,
Yeah.
it's not just you.
Yeah. Yeah. And that was the most rewarding thing about doing my own podcast
Yeah.
was that, and that really allow enabling other moms to have a platform like that just lit me up. I
Mhm.
mean, my friend Rachel, so the reason I started the Podcasting Moms Club, it was kind of just out of this organic desire to have a space for moms who are podcasters to talk about these things similar to what you're saying
Yeah.
that weren't necessarily talked about in these podcast growth Facebook groups
Mhm.
or what you heard. And Pat Flynn's amazing. He's also a man. He's never like he's not a mom.
Yeah.
And so some of the things that you hear, um, their advice is great, but they don't know your experience like another mom podcaster does. And you
Mhm.
wonder, when does she record if she has kids at home? Or
Yeah.
you wonder, are my downloads where they're supposed to be? And you don't want to feel dumb, no one to mansplain how you turn on your microphone. Like, please, enough. No,
Yeah.
we're very smart women. We know what we're doing here. Um, so yeah, that was the desire to create a space, a safer space for women to come and really share what's working, how we can help each other grow our audiences, um, you know, do collaborations or just spark ideas that are maybe you haven't heard before that it's working for somebody, and just to yeah, feel encouragement and like you're not alone. We're all doing this
Yeah.
thing together.
Yeah. I love that. I didn't know like how you started with that. So I mean,
Yeah.
I'm all about community and it's so important. And especially, did you start that during the pandemic as well? I mean, or is it like a
I
little bit
started
after or
the
last year?
it was just after. So it was the fall of 2021 is
Gotcha.
when I started the club. And
Yeah.
I literally just I put out on Instagram, I was like, hey, is anybody interested in doing a Zoom meetup to talk about podcasting? And people were like, yeah, let's do it. I want to meet. And I honestly, when I did it, I was so afraid no one was going to show up. I
Yeah.
was like, I'm in this Zoom room. Is anybody even going to show up here? But they did. And a lot of those women are still in the club. So
Mm,
it's been really great. The most amazing part of the club is the women in it, like you.
mm.
And that really is, I'm just a container for it. Like I'm a facilitator. I'm not there to like to be the coach or to be the face of it. It's just amazing to see the support and just the smart ideas that come out of there. So I love
Yeah.
it so much.
Yeah. And this podcast episode is coming out after you actually have, is this your first live event that you're doing
Well,
in April
first for first
for
for
podcasting?
podcasting.
Yeah.
Yes. I'm having like flashbacks of I used to part of my fundraising experience for nonprofits was doing galas and doing walks and doing events. Like that's what we did. And hosting this $1 million fundraiser and all the moving pieces and the stress involved in that. I'm trying to unplug from that.
Yeah.
But yeah, this is the first podcasting moms conference that we've done. And we intentionally want to keep it kind of intimate and small so that everybody, it's not some huge name podcaster on a stage a mile away from you
Yeah.
that you're just being talked at about
Yeah.
podcasting. It really is the idea of learning from each other and just more of an in-person and step up from what we do in the club every month with our monthly
Yeah.
calls.
I love
Yeah.
it. So this podcast episode will come out after that has happened, but I know that that is going to be an incredible event. And you're collaborating with another mom podcaster to put that on. And it's just
Yes.
awesome. And it's just showing like community and connection and the space of podcasting and what it can do and be and how it can feel. So it's awesome.
Yeah. Love
I'm
it so
excited for
much.
you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
thank
Is there
you.
anything like you haven't shared about podcasting or motherhood or like just going forward or anything that just kind of feels on your heart to kind of share that maybe you haven't?
I'll wrap it up with this story that I haven't really shared anywhere before. The people who come to the event will hear it, but it just goes to kind of wrap the bow around motherhood and podcasting because my friend Rachel and I, who I talked about, was kind of the reason I started Podcasting Moms Club. We were planning to do an in-person event that spring of 2020.
Mm,
I had even gone and talked to some places about renting a space because both of our podcasts were about motherhood, and we really wanted to hold space, a physical space for moms to come and talk about these things and feel supported and feel encouraged and get tools. Like, our podcasts were resources for them, but not only that, on a bigger scale, that they could get other resources and support. And that event never happened because of the pandemic. And lots of things happened. That's been almost exactly 4 years from
yeah.
the date we're holding this event that's coming up, that will have passed when you hear this.
Yeah.
But that, just the preparation and the things that happen in that 4 years in between to allow this very similar yet very different event that supports moms, that encourages moms, that helps provide resources and get their voice out. Like, there's nothing else. I couldn't have
Yeah.
planned it any better than that. And I think that when you seek out that space where you feel supported and encouraged, that's where the magic happens.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. It's totally where the magic happens. And I'm just sending you like all the love and support. And I know that it's just going to be magical and incredible. And obviously, like, this is the Reawakened Mom. So it's like, this is the podcast for like opening your eyes and knowing that you aren't
Yeah.
alone and that you can shift and change. And that's okay. And there's nothing wrong with you. And there is
Yeah.
no like book here. Like, none of us is following a book. Chapter one, here's what you
Right.
do. Like, here's
Yeah.
chapter two, here's how
No.
you're going to feel, and this is what you're going to do about it. I mean, we're all just like throwing our hands up in the air and like, I don't know what's happening right now.
No, we're all just figuring it out as we go. And I always go back to, my husband says this and he has to remind me very often because I am one to like forget about taking care of myself. But he says, because I'm like, oh, other people need me more than I need to be doing, whatever. You know how that goes as moms. And he says, if you're not good, we're not good.
Hmm.
So it's like, I have to be, you have to, those things are important to you. They're important to the people you care about. So
Hmm.
you've got to figure out how to get plugged in, how to like get filled, whether it's your community, whether it's creativity, whatever that is.
Yeah.
If it's podcasting, great. If not, there'll be something else. Yeah, so that would be my last little bit of encouragement there, that it's
Yeah.
not selfish or it's not um meaningless or small to really go think about those things and jump into whatever that is that feels
Hmm.
like it fills your cup there.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. Thank you for sharing that, and good for your husband for
Yeah,
for noticing that
I
too.
know.
He's like, I want to be happy around here, so I got
I
to make
know,
sure you're
right?
happy. I love it. The one question that I ask every single guest who comes on the podcast, because I do feel like we as women don't celebrate ourselves enough. But what is something that you love about yourself right now? And there is no right answer. It can be about your business, it can be personal, whatever you want it to be.
That I love about myself. So this is okay. This is something that I wouldn't have said probably 6 months or even a year ago, but I have really been to this point taking care of myself. So I have prioritized my health and I've been working out. Like that's surprise, surprise. But I used to work out very routinely when I was much younger.
Hmm.
And life, things happen and schedules. And I have made it a point and I have stuck to it. And I know that's really not about me, but it's something that I'm honoring in myself by doing that. And I'm proud of myself for making it happen.
Good for you. I love it. Yeah. I mean, you have to celebrate yourself. And like, even if something that you think sounds silly or it's like, this is, I don't know, like, it might sound silly to someone else. It's like, this is a big deal. Like,
Yeah.
because we are so quick to like discredit ourselves. So yeah, congratulations. Consistency and making that time to do it is key. So awesome. Okay, Amanda, everyone's gonna want to find out more about you or connect with you. Where is the best place or places to find you?
I would love to connect with people. I am on Instagram. I'm not there a lot, but you can definitely connect with me at Gotcha Mama on Instagram. And I would love if you are a podcaster yourself or if you are getting ready to start a podcast, please reach out to join our podcasting moms club.
Yeah.
And you can do that just at gotchamama.com/club. And you can find out more there and join the club. We'd love to have you.
Yeah. Awesome. And I'll make sure that's in the show notes and everything too. So thank you so
Yeah.
much for being here today and sharing some things I didn't know about you. So that was
Yeah.
really, really exciting. And I know the moms that are listening are just gonna love this episode. So thanks, Amanda.
You're so welcome.
Bye.